Conclusion of the Picture That Story Writing Challenge. So exciting to be here. I always love these days. If you've never been to one of these before, it's a lot of fun. I'm about to read our finalists. There are 5 of them today. So we've got a lot to go through. I'm not going to take a lot of time, but in case you're just kind of joining in with us, don't worry because you can still involve yourself in this challenge because it's going to be up to all of you to determine who the grand winner is. So, as much as it'll be fun to hear your work be read, hopefully, and cheer on the fellow winners, yeah, it's going to be ultimately your call as to who wins this challenge. I'm going to say this was a very hard one to examine. I will say that for sure. We got 94 submissions, of which a fair amount of them did qualify. We did have to eliminate some based on not following the guidelines. So just remember that always follow the guidelines. I think some may have just been mistakes or whatever, or people just not paying attention. But yes, we had a fair amount. So it's tricky. And I will say it was tricky to to go through them. But I think I'm happy with the result. I think you'll be happy with the result as well. All right, let's go ahead and get going. So the rules were no longer than 2,000 words and needed to incorporate the prompt. What was the prompt? Any genre, of course. The prompt was this was one of them. This was the one that everybody had to use. And then the next prompt, you had a choice of any of the following 3 images: this one, and this one. I will say this one and this one were a lot more popular than this one, and I'm not all that surprised. This was probably the most esoteric of all of them. And then the last twist was this. Now, we saw incorporations of these image prompts in so many different ways. I hope you enjoy what the finalists came up with. I certainly found some inventive uses and all of that. So we're going to dive right in right after we give away some prizes. So as you know, just involving yourself in the challenge, even if you are not one of the finalists here, even if you aren't the grand winner, you still are eligible for some prizes. So the first prize I want to give away is the recording of the Writer's Block Workshop. Writer's Block Workshop. Somebody was asking if there's a way to know if your work was accepted or rejected. For the purpose of this challenge, the only rejections were if the work was over 2,000 words long. So if it wasn't over 2,000 words long, you were okay. We did not have to eliminate and based on anything else. Everybody who is within the 2,000 word limit was meeting the other requirements of the challenge. So pretty simple. Did you get your word count right? All right. Writer's Block Workshop. I don't have a name, but it looks like it's the email is Diminick Sean or Diminick Shaw, excuse me, Dimonick. So congratulations to you. Sorry, it's not the World Building Workshop yet. And then we're going to give away another one. And this is to Jace Journals. Jace Journals, congratulations to you. World Building Workshop. We're giving away some world building workshops here. Sarah Pastor, Sarae Pastor is one of them. The other one is Kay White. Kay White, congratulations to you. You are winning the World Building Workshop. And if you've won any of these prizes, just give us a little bit of time, just I don't know, a couple hours or something like that. It shouldn't take too long. They'll appear within your Academy page. You just log onto your account and you go straight over to the Academy. Next, we're going to have Penning Passions. So next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, we're going to have Kara Crescent, the award-winning romance author, to teach about romance writing. Really cool. She does an excellent job. We've offered this course several times, always gets great reviews. The first winner of this is going to be Tatiana McCoffey, I believe, MC or McGahi, MCGAUHI. Ughy. My apologies if I'm mispronouncing your last name. And then we have PJ Pisani, I believe, is the other one. And so again, if this is you, just look for it. You don't have to do anything. You just have to log into your AutoCrit account. It'll just appear in the Academy side. If you're not able to attend any of these courses live, romance or fantasy, you can, you can watch it recorded. How are you supposed to give away again these giveaways? You are automatically entered. Don't worry. You didn't have to do anything. um, you didn't have to do you didn't have to do anything besides involve yourself in the challenge. That's all. Okay. Story sorcery. Story sorcery. We have uh officials Montoya. I love that. That is one of the winners of Story Sorcery. This is our fantasy course, by the way. That's going to be starting later in August with yours truly as we go through the building blocks of fantasy. I know we have some fantasy alumni. I know we have some romance alumni. Yep, yep, yep. Whoop, whoop. But yeah, we have some fantasy alumni as well. Erna Saprun or Saprun, Suprun. You are the other winner of Story Sorcery. So again, just look for it inside your Academy page. Yay, fantasy. All right. So that being said, I'm not going to talk about AutoCrit formatting just yet. We're going to discuss the winners. We're going to look at the finalists here. So hold on here. I got to bring up my screen for that. All right. And I'm going to read these in no particular order. I'm not going to bring any comments about them or anything like that. Because thank you, Monique. I'm going to just read them as straightforward as I can because, again, it's going to be up to you to vote at the end. We're going to read five finalists. Okay, so this is finalist number 1, and it's entitled Illicit. Illicit. Okay. Bernardo glanced over his shoulder, ever on high alert for government agents or police officers. 7 months ago, what he was doing had become illegal overnight by the stroke of some bureaucrat's feather-tipped pen. He imagined them signing with a flourish in front of adoring sycophants. The government had gone to the dogs, of that he was certain. He straightened his shoulders and held his head high. After all, wasn't he just walking his odd little pet? It looks like an anteater, Mr. B, one of his neighbors had told him, with its pointy nose and all. Don't let her catch you calling her that, he said with a laugh. She fancies herself a purebred. Just last night, his small companion pointed her nose to the sky and let out what for her amounted to a howl. In reality, it was more like a chirp, but who was keeping track? The man strode along, glancing at the buildings on either side that had been commandeered by the new regime. That red brick 3-story structure once housed a department store, but now it contained a branch of the government. Which branch? No one seemed to know, but you didn't want to be taken there. Everyone knew at least that much. Bars covered its windows. It reminded Bernardo of the old KGB he'd read about years ago in his history classes. And down the block and across the street stood what used to be the library, now the main offices of the leadership. He mourned the loss of the library. What had they done with all the books? Did the new occupants even appreciate the glorious soaring ceilings with its ornate carvings and its pillars supporting the vaulted roof? Did they even notice their surroundings in the midst of their nefarious plotting? He doubted it. Mitsui trotted along at his side, content and huffing at every sound in the evening air. It had been one of those pleasant autumn evenings, cool, crisp air, the sky that magical blue that the autumns here was famous for. The extravagant orange sunset from minutes ago was now faded to a dull apricot. Dried leaves had fallen from the trees and drifted to the sidewalk, crunching underfoot as they walked. The smell brought back treasured memories of her carefree childhood, raking leaves and jumping into piles with his sister and brother, both of whom languished in prison now, having fallen victim to the always changing rules of this new government. He sighed, and Mitsui looked up. Papers, please. A young woman clad in dull khaki with bright red epaulets and a name tag that read Stark stepped in front of him and held out her left hand, her right one resting on her holstered gun. So much for a pleasant stroll. Bernardo pulled out his ID. Anything the matter, Officer Stark? We received reports of illicit pineapple farming in this vicinity. Oh, you're retired now, sir. She looked over his ID card. Government took away my livelihood, so yes. I should not have said that. He felt sweat forming and was glad for the cool air. Criticizing our leadership, Mr. Savetti? She barked. No, Sergeant, just stating a fact. He crossed his fingers on the side opposite her and wished for the zillionth time since the coup that he could live his life in the open. How had it come about that farming pineapples was now the sole prerogative of government megafarms? When had that pineapple derivative become such a sought after drug? The government must be raking in money faster than ever before, to say nothing of the pharmaceutical corporations' take. Better keep it that way. You may go. Remember, curfew is 10 p.m. She handed back his ID and turned on her heel to stop and question the next person. You'll never catch me, Bernardo thought. I hope. Illicit pineapple farming, even on a small scale like his tiny operation deep in the woods, was punishable by a large fine and prison time. The sky darkened as he walked, Mitsui panting and huffing and chirping at his side. She does look something like an anteater. He smiled. His trip to the zoo before the coup made everyday joy so suspect had found him watching one of those creatures siphoning up ants as if they were its last meal. Bernardo walked on until the town blurred into amorphous shapes in the dim light, and still he walked. He dared only to do his business at night. The trees that kept his secret shadowed every piece of his small plot and made his hoeing and weeding tough work. But he was determined to keep his family heritage alive in some fashion. At the edge of the forest, he picked his way through a thick hedge of bushes where he, months ago, hollowed out a space and stashed a wheelbarrow, rake, hoe, and harvesting tool. The hiding place was nearly undetectable. Nearly. The best he could do with his time and need for secrecy. I'm glad Toby warned me what was coming. He brightened at the thought of his friend, who risked his own freedom to tell him. He worked for one of the operatives, a thug who had cheated his way to become part of the new government. He and Toby were still friends, but took extra precautions as to where they met, what they said, and how they said it. One never knew who was listening. The new leader suspected everyone of something, and surprise inspections were now a regular part of life. If you couldn't prove who you were and why you were in a certain place, you were likely to be held and questioned. He himself had already been grilled a month ago about why he was out at night so close to curfew. Fortunately, it had been another such crisp autumn evening with a new air newly refreshed with a short rainstorm. How could I resist? He told them. He stuck to his story, animatedly pantomiming a big sniff of the air, wide eyed in his enjoyment. In truth, he had been off to tend his pineapple patch in the woods. A few trusted friends wanted one when he harvested them. He couldn't make a living anymore on the few he would sell to them, but he refused to let his father's dream totally die in the face of bureaucratic interference. He picked up odd jobs here and there and got by. The wheelbarrow was not in the hollow with the tools. Bernardo backed out and searched in the dim light. He soon saw its dark outline against the darker trees. He moved closer and discovered to his horror a mound of what must be pineapples filling it. Somebody had found his patch. He was in it for it now. How many years in prison would he have to serve? How much fine would they charge him? No matter how small a fine, he wouldn't be able to pay it anyway. He backed away, panting his leg for Mitsui to follow. She stood her ground, her back hunched in aggression. Now's not the time, girl. Come, he whispered. A shot whizzed over his head. Stop where you are, or the next bullet is yours. A wiry man, shorter than Bernardo by 4 or 5 inches, stepped out of the trees and pointed his gun at him. Competing with the big guys, are we? Bernardo said nothing. What was there he could say? He could have overpowered the man any day, but not with a gun aimed his direction. The man lit a cigarette, the flame temporarily revealing a tight lipped smirk. If you do what I say, maybe I'll let you go. Bernardo swallowed. Bad chance of that. Besides him, Mitsui chirped and hissed, obviously disliking the man on sight. Good judge of character, he thought, a grim resignation battling with pride in his feisty pet. Wheel these pineapples to my house, and I won't say anything to the higher ups. Bernardo eyed the wheelbarrow, loaded high as it was with the ripe fruit. His muscles ached in protest. He hoped the man would get caught with the contraband in his possession. Get moving. Bernardo grunted with the effort and stopped often, but after a half an hour, they finally reached the back door of the man's place. He sighed with relief and let the sweet-smelling load rest. It was full dark now. Curfew was long past, and thousands of stars were out in all their splendor. How can the sky be so brilliant and it still be so dark, he thought. Just so you remember to keep your mouth shut, the man said, landing an unexpected swift, hard punch to Bernardo's face. He felt his glasses cut into the bridge of his nose before they fell. The man stamped on them, and Bernardo groaned. Now someone would know he'd been in a fight, and there would be questioning for sure. Get out of here before I really hurt you, and see if you can escape the curfew, minders, pineapple farmer, he sneered. Bernardo picked up his ruined glasses and turned on his heel, but not before a picture of the man's severed head buried in the heap of pineapples flashed through his mind. He was startled at how much visceral pleasure that gave him. Come, Mitsui, let's go home. He patted his leg, and his odd, sharp-nosed pet followed. All right. That was Illicit, the first story. Story number 2 is called Awaking Semtli's Light Nights. Semtli City, Century 34, August 4th, Year 4, 9:34 a.m. Rain left red puddles on the road. Water percolated to the ground levels where mortals had a living. Pergola shielded the view of the carmine clouds. My pinky finger pushed the noisy cart up street. We read the footnote of the map, passing slower than a snail. Thousand layers megacity site, Kemtli City. Top level residents, vampire and elves. Underground levels, fragile creatures to acid rain. That explained why my tangerine lighting breath had everyone running away, except this disgusting human, a pineapple merchant. We stopped at a sturdy concrete wall. He scanned a cone and the wall moved. It was a bunker entrance for an industrial complex inside carts, and cars were empty with cargo. This man's cart would be burned by my fire breath. Earth had no space for this disgusting fruits that felt like newborn dragon scales. Just wait, it's payback time when I find Earl. Around the street, my first goal waited, a red circle, and 505 repeated all over the ground plan. A treasure hunt for his bipod my lackey left. He was not in my den like always. The rain, the vendor shivered. Police might catch you. Even after using the gas mask, he seemed worried. Mortals. They still love drama, and I love scaring them. I pointed at my chest. I am a nosy citizen. Go and hide now, pest. He closed the bunker in a rush that caused the hidden door to screech. The heat of a living underneath the load shivered at the rock's sound. They had not changed a bit. They believed I could fall for their schemes. My path continued in the dense stream of the city. Walls shone in a neon red taint, reminiscent of the acid rain hours before. I took my glove off, dug my claws. A black paste scraped by thick layers until the hard walls grooved underneath my claws. Exposed copper pipes and enormous underground complexes held short-living species. Brutalist architecture had its revival with a steampunk vibe. Mortals always had a bad taste, no matter the era. Unbothered, I returned to read the city's map. The outer shell, Huey, protects structures from barren lands and harsh environments. Life for species is possible in Unity. Unity? They kept us separate in gated cities and block districts. We dragons triggered this by hiding magic. Our job for multiple millennia. Sleep in our dens. Despite the rules of the Dragon Lord, I explored the achievements and misadventures of the short-lived creatures. It had been 10 centuries since the last apocalypse. The mega-rich left to colonize other planets. Only one stayed on Earth. Erlinton, I called him. He found my den a few centuries ago. Checked for the right direction on the floor plan. A pair of 20-meter blue steel doors shine not far away from the bunker site. Earl had me in a city hunt for him, or his freezing capsule for the looks of the serial number written in the map. That feeble human is my servant. I played, causing chaos to mortals, curing my boredom, and he dealt with the aftermath, surely pleased to serve me. 2 gray watchtowers framed the gates, armed with weapons that aimed at the central upper part of the gate. A pressure cylinder brass ring, a thing rammed between the watchtowers. A biopod. I read the serial number on the bullseye window. Number 505. My fingers dug in the solid structure. The target was him. Stupid Erlington in trouble. His money can't save him now. The fake greenery of the city camouflaged the patrol cars of the Chemtlee. Approaching the gate, a translucent barrier appeared. I could break it, but Earl would be too stressed waking up to a mess with the law. A woman with gray hair stepped out of a patrol car. Her deep orange uniform had three gold stars on her chest. Her angsty expression worsened with my black skies. Detective, she asked. Earl had bought a fake ID last time. She scanned it. Her frown relaxed as the hurdle disappeared. Didn't inspect the ID. Good. It had my only photograph from the 18th century. She glanced at my feet. Must be her first assignment. Raised my shoulders. Shiny night metal boots were a fashion statement. Is that a portable flamethrower? She pointed at my back. I shrugged. It's to hide my fire breath. Not my first rodeo, ma'am. I hid my nasty claws in the trench coat pockets. I never called for backup, ever. Go in, she smirked and sat in the shade, opening a newspaper covering the incident. Empty museum! Biopod with philanthropist found on Chemtlee's gates. Erlington's house was in the picture. No wonder he missed my awakening. He had been stolen and rammed on the heights. The brass biopod kept its canonical form, not a scratch visible. A ledge had it bouncing as the wind rocked it back and forth. All patrolmen stayed in the cars at my arrival, except a white suit man. He paced uneasy. I distinguished his features on my people to avoid list Earl had on the plan. We crossed our eyes. He looked older than Erlington. Wrinkles showed as he smiled, rushing me to approach the scene. I pointed chin up. Erlington? His stern, nervous nod ended our exchange and wrote on a clipboard my arrival hour, his eyes too red and watery. He cried for my minion? You are a rookie detective, Miss Human, he scoffed. A cackle left my mouth. It made the Admiral flinch. Bet you're a human. Admiral James Colt. My best friend is in there, he introduced with a frown. Don't my rank affect your work, trainee. I took a peek at my map notes. My servant wrote two things about James. Law and order fanatic. Annoyed, he extended his hand to me. Love breaking rules and order. Shook his hand. He would avoid me like no one before now. He took a look at the nickname my lackey had written on the black trench coat. May we know your species, Miss Moyokoa? Call me human, I adjusted the slick shot. It's the mildest slur I've heard in years. His green eyes were framed with his frown. A precise shot pierced meters above the biopod. James squealed as his clipboard fell. The screw bullet pierced the concrete wall. The hard hit triggered the mechanism to launch a wire line back to us. I had to admit, humans have the best technology. I stepped on the line to secure it and picked up his clipboard. The patrol calls moved closer as James flagged them. You can't shoot, James scolded me. The laws. You need a chill pill. I tried to return the clipboard. He jerked back. Not waiting for anyone. His mouth twitched. The pod is fine until the rescue team arrives. Are you sure? I distracted him. He flipped through the pages as I secured the climbing hook. 2 hours to be critical. The thief ran away. Clemteel's governor will be pleased for your work. Do I only care that, lackey? I signaled to the pod. My point echoed as he covered my mask to shut me off. He's a metal dildo pod crowning the gate. James apologized to the captain that held a chuckle. We'll keep it down. I adjusted my gas mask. Are you really his friend? My finger in the tight bodysuit. I attached the small miner's elevator that clipped to the wire line. You are a human. Shock struck him. Took out a dagger. He backed away in fear of the tiny ancient weapons. The rain, you might die. Pulled the string to start the elevator motor. At full speed, I got snatched away as James screamed. Stop! Gravity nor him had a chance. I dashed through the airstream and slam kissed the wall, even left my silhouette marked as I clinged my feet over the line. With the knife ready to fight the armed watchtowers, they reacted. All weapons withdrew. I was left waving my knife. Get off the wall, James sounded hasty on the megaphone. I dropped on top of the metal capsule. My God, James squealed. The case tilted toward the ground, digging my claws. We kept stable in the heights. Law enforcers came closer in a rush. Come out! I pierced the knife on the pod's top lid. The cracked released gas and nitrogen. The electric valves changed. The plain white numbers colored shifted to green, orange, yellow. It stopped in red. If you break the seal, James stated, you will be charged with first-degree murder, detective. See what happens when you sleep in, I growled. Rise and shine. Wedging the dagger on the welded edges and managed to twist the door open. The layers of film protecting the insides of the biopod blocked my view. Stuck my hand in trying to wake him. In my 40 millennium, I never endured such labor. Ugh! I retrieved my hand abruptly. A prickly thing pressed my gloves. It was familiar, like caressing dragon scales. I peeked my head down, removing the outer layer of film protecting the body inside. Fonk! I shivered at the gruesome sight. Is that a pile? Touched one. I rubbed my hand and panicked. Pineapple? James announced the name of another hideous thing. Goosebumps raised as my claws sharpened. My brain flipped all the red flags on my path here. Draconic rage turned to the merchant. How dare he? My throat sizzled. My body aimed towards the hidden bunkers. The pod swayed off the ledge with my movement. I threw the knife to the ground, snapping the wire line. The police focused their arms at me. Strangely, the tower did not react. I glided across the blockade on my fall. They activated an alarm. White barriers unfolded as an origami puzzle. They began to close this path by sections. A clipboard flew by and knocked part of the barrier. I bounced distracted on the hard concrete floor. The pain was nothing but fuel towards my goal. Since my 30 millennia, pineapples should be annihilated. My back cracked as I tried to stand. I sighed 2 meters away from my revenge. Erlington, I squirmed like a worm passing the fence actively forming. Fonking pineapples? Slowly, I kneeled to rub my back and limped away, waving goodbye to the lawmen. They got locked behind the barrier. In front of the bunker door, my soft kick made the half-meter concrete entrance crumble. A debris cloud formed as I pulled out my boot. Police managed to slam open a part of the roadblock. Between the chaos, the merchant ran away. I stepped in, avoiding the debris or scratches. A familiar black-haired and golden-skinned person dug himself out of the cart's contents. His scent was modified. That never happened before, ever. Erlington, get out! He blinked, embarrassed, inside the pile of fruit I ordered him to obliviate last time. His feeble body trembled. I was kidnapped by them, Earl yelled, so out of character for his pushover personality. I crossed my arms. Last time he claimed to be allergic to pineapples, to not follow my order. This is not Erlington. Hold! James aimed inside, but froze at the sight. Do not attack her, Jamie. Earl approached, reading my name tag. I request, Moyo. Shred apart your kidnapper? I asked to test this man. Erlington is a peace lover. They rob antiquities. Humanity depends on history, Earl pleaded. Please, help me destroy them. She catching them? James mocked, glancing at me. Is this a joke? My heart raced. I had no competition for several millennia, and my real servant is missing. Prepare for defeat, I alerted both. No, please, Earl muttered in a shiver. He's my friend. A mischievous giggle fluttered out of my lips. So, payback will come when I find Earl. All right, moving on to the next story here. Whoops. This one is called Antique Atrocities. I have to make a decision. I feel the weight of it in my shoulders and again in each individual joint of my fingers. A sizable rock from the garden burdens my hands, cool to the touch, or maybe I'm overheating. Sweat pricks along my back as I stare down at the sculpture. I think it's an anteater, but it could be a badger. Its stained glass body stands 2 feet high, head bowed deeply in prayer or mourning. I tried to ignore it. I really did, but it called to me like a voice from the depths of an abandoned well. My little brother should be hiding by now, tucked away in a corner of Grandpa's massive house, which means that it's my turn to seek. If only I could move from this spot. I imagine roots growing up from the hardwood and winding around my legs, securing me to this place, this moment. It needs me for something. I've never taken much notice of the antiques that clutter Grandpa's house, leaving barely enough room to walk. The stench of the place invades my nose and makes me tear up for the first half hour of every visit. It's like vegetables pickled in cat pee. Mom says we have to spend every Thursday this summer with him since he won't be around for much longer. Dad, on the other hand, says the same thing every time Grandpa comes up in conversation. The nastiest people always refuse to die since they know where they'll end up. I should probably be more upset about his claims of my grandpa going to hell, but he is an extremely difficult man to like. I overheard Mom on the phone with her sister once calling him names I'm not allowed to repeat. An image of my little brother Dylan trapped beneath a pile of toppled oddities flashes through my mind, but the sculpture won't let me go. It looks like it's glowing. It's more than that, though. It's reaching out to me, a hand through my chest, wrapping chilled fingers around my heart. Despair overwhelms my senses. Don't touch anything, Grandpa yells through my memories. My arms are shaking before I realize they're above my head. My cheeks are wet, my vision blurred. He won't notice one broken thing out of his mountains of possessions. If I shifted under one of the piles, he might believe it broke on its own. I'll return the rock to the garden, and he'll never know. Break through its glass skin, break free of its hold. The muscles of my 11-year-old arms strain, then falter. The stone crashes into the anteater, smashing a crater into its back. The sound is deafening. Ringing fills my ears, and I have the impulse to run. I must have gasped because the next thing I know, musty air plunges into my throat and choke as quietly as I can. I shouldn't be here. I should be watching Dylan. We only have a few more hours until Mom picks us up, and if they find something broken, they'll blame him. My heart slingshots into my throat as I turn to flee. I can't hear anything over my hammering pulse. My escape starts to form behind my eyes, but it dissolves like paper in the rain. I inch closer to make sure what I'm seeing, and my stomach flips. There's something inside of the sculpture. Half buried under the rainbow of broken glass, I can almost hear them begging me to look, to witness them. Panic bubbles up within me. I want to scream my refusal. I don't want any part of this. My feet don't listen. They're dragging me over. My eyes find their way in. Immediately, the moment expands, becoming too big, too much, too real. I didn't know time could feel like this. The surreal understanding that I've stepped over some invisible line leaves a sinking feeling inside of me. An irreversible change has taken place within me. No matter the years that stretch between this occurrence, there will never be enough separation. The trauma carves itself into every ridge and curve of my bones, and I know that despite what comes next, a part of me will remain here at this very moment. Time returns to its normal speed, and I decide it must be a joke. There has to be something I'm missing because this can't be right. I'm not seeing this. The gnarled hands of anxiety wrap around and around my neck. I force my legs to back away. The ancient floorboards reach up and catch my sneakers, throwing me to the ground. I have to find Dylan. I have to get him out of here. He can't see this. But maybe I should touch them. The thought comes from somewhere right behind me, or maybe I don't want to take credit for such a morbid idea. For now, I'll blame the shadows because nothing seems to make more sense than that. So I do. My fingers reach into the broken shell that was once the beast's form. I shake like a sapling in a tropical storm as my fingers pluck one of the pieces out. It's too small. A chicken bone? Maybe a beloved pet that passed away. Yes, those bones were too small to be anything else, though I can't remember Grandpa ever having an animal in the house. It must be from before I was born, a pet so dear to his heart that he couldn't stand to bury it in the cold, dark ground. I've almost convinced myself when I notice the shape of the skull. The ground falls away from me. The overwhelming sadness floods my senses again. The bones screaming at me to tell someone. Frantic, I scramble back, but their cries are a knife through my head. Something happened here. The word sadistic rattles through my head, and I grab blindly for its meaning. Do I know that word? Was it part of last week's vocabulary test? The world is going black at its edges. I have to find Dylan and get out of here. Hopefully, I took too long and he has abandoned his hiding spot, assuming I've given up the game. Maybe Grandpa doesn't know about the bones. He could have bought it like that. Just a weird piece of art finding someone's. A wail of pain shakes the house, freeing dust from crevices and sending heavy curios crashing around me. Fragile things break and embed themselves in my flesh. The scream comes again from below me this time, yelling the same thing over and over. He knew what he was doing. He killed her. Against my better judgment, I look down. A face pushes out at me, shaped from the crooked floorboards. The knots of the wood gave her two misshapen eyes, dark and shiny like buttons. Her mouth doesn't match up as her cries go on, stretching her jaw wider and wider, moving in a way that wood shouldn't be able to move. Excuse me. I'm afraid I'll fall as her twisted lips continue to grow with the roars, but as I find my feet, I see what the woman is trying to show me. Her mouth is as wide as a swimming pool, wrinkling and splintering around her internal chanting. Every emotion empties out of me. I stand there numb, staring down into her gaping jaws. The house throws my grandpa's possession around in a cyclone, but I stand in the eye of the storm, looking down into a mass grave. I gaze into the horror until I understand. Another shriek breaks open the world, but this time it's Dylan's. My heart stops at the sound, and I run towards him, dodging antique microwaves and broken vases as they whip through the air. I cry out for him, and the house lets loose another shuddering roar. The structure creaks and groans with the effort of staying upright. Every room is chaos. My skin rips open against broken door frames and airborne debris, but there he is, Grandpa has Dylan's arm in a death grip, spittle flying from scabbed lips as his crimson face shouts at my little brother. My patience snaps like an old bone. As I run towards them, the carpet ripples beneath me. A yell erupts from my chest, and a vase flies between my brother and Grandpa. The old man jerks back, releasing his hold and staring daggers at me, but I've already decided that he won't hurt anyone ever again. The fear rolls off me, and the carpet snaps back, tossing him from his feet. He hurls curses at me, but they slide off my skin. I smile, and the floorboards behind him rise up in a wave as Dylan hurries away from our grandpa. When I show my teeth, the boards surge forward, pushing him to the room with a gaping maw. Dylan stares up with round eyes as I follow at a slow and measured pace. Vision of Grandpa's past flicker through my mind in a slideshow. There's no way that anyone in the family knew who he really was, the terrors he was capable of. The visions overlay my sight so that I'm seeing past and present simultaneously. I make my way into the room. The broken boards hold Grandpa in place as he swings his cane and spits out vile state sentiments. Dylan, I say casually over my shoulder, go play outside. The door closes, sealing my brother away from what's about to happen. The room bursts with noise, puckering pops of lids unsealing from their jars, crashes of busts cracking open their floor as more and more of his precious souvenirs open themselves up. Skeletal hands emerge from sculptures and free other remains from their prisons. He had his trophies hiding in plain sight. The thought burns the back of my throat with bile. The body parts surround him and attack as one, dragging him down into the floor's pulsating mouth, swallowing him like an insect in a closing fist. I collapse to my knees, air evacuating my lungs and relief flooding my system. We did it, I croak out before slipping softly into unconsciousness. I stab a straw through the circle tinfoil at the top of an orange juice box and hand it to Dylan. We sit together on the front porch and try to be the first to spot our mom's car. Dylan yells when a red Subaru rounds the corner and I punch him playfully on the arm. You lose this round. Mom drives a Toyota, I announce. The stranger's car continues past us, causing the summer breeze to tousle our hair. I look at Dylan and send up a silent prayer that his subconscious buries today. It took a while for him to stop crying, but once he finally calmed down, I promised to buy him whatever he wanted with my allowance as long as he didn't tell anyone about today. I wondered for the first time who he was crying for. When our mom finally collects us, she shouts a half-hearted, "Thanks, love you," into the house as we pile into her car. Dylan and I exchange a glance as mom backs out of the driveway. I hold a finger up to my lips and mouth, "Shh." My brother responds with two fingers pinched close and mime, zipping his lips shut and tossing away the key. The car bumps along the uneven pavement of the road as we pull away. I let my eyes linger on the house until it's lost from view, wondering briefly if Grandpa has any friends that would bother to check in on him. Anyone at all that would come looking. But I don't dwell on it for too long. That's a problem for next Thursday. By the way, if anybody wants to announce that they are one of the finalists, let me know. I'm not giving names out, but feel free to announce yourself if it is you. All right. Next one is called Not Pineapples. Not Pineapples. The yellow pineapples were a discordant note in the otherwise green-brown painting. Dr. Ben glanced around the sterile gray room. 10 children in slate gray cotton uniforms stood in front of easels. The images they painted ranged from abstract scribbles to folk art. Only Celia had skill, and her painting contained emotion. It was an innocuous painting of a cart in the middle of the woods filled with pineapples, but dread seeped under Ben's skin. He knelt beside the frail, blonde, 10-year-old child to study her painting. The eyes of the pineapple were more eye-like than necessary, but it was the desolate woods that felt otherworldly. A beautiful piece, Celia. We asked you to paint a pivotal moment in your life. Ben shifted to ease the pain in his knees. Are pineapples important? He waited out her silence. Celia calmly dabbed at a clump of moss in the background. The moss took the shape of a creature, some sort of beast. A monster from her past? A groan escaped as he pulled himself up. Retirement called. But 6 years ago, he vowed to work until he discovered what caused the bubbly 4-year-old to become the Celia before him. His wife, a fan of Moby Dick, accused Celia of being Ben's white whale. Dr. Ben, the muffled voice of Nurse Linda filtered through the viewing window. Her arm swished back and forth, windshield wiper style. He took 2 steps toward her, but pivoted when the monotone voice spoke behind him. What did you say, Celia? He leaned in and waited. She whispered. It's not about pineapples. But it's a wagon full of pineapples. Celia shook her head. Not pineapples. Linda pounded on the glass window. Ben waved her off, but then caught the glint of glass in her hand. He glanced at Celia and then gestured for one of the attendants to monitor the children. As soon as he closed the self locking door behind him, Linda said, It started again. Ben took the shattered glasses from her. Are you sure it was her? Who else breaks my glasses and drop them in water? I found them outside in the mud. Dr. Ben, Celia needs to be in a secure facility. She scares me. Since her father is the administrator of this facility, that's unlikely. Besides, she didn't harm or threaten you. Linda glanced nervously through the window at Celia. But why is she doing this to me? Ben thought, because your blonde hair and blue eyes remind her of the mother that abandoned her. When Celia started breaking Linda's glasses last year, Ben believed they were close to a breakthrough. The glasses were a clue to the traumatic event that had driven Celia inside herself, but Ben had pushed it too fast. Celia became aggressive, and Blink Stanford, Celia's father, insisted Ben increase her medication. 3 months later, as Ben weaned Celia out of her fog, all signs of the breakthrough were gone. Until now. The timing, late fall, coincided with her mom's desertion, but there had to be more. Linda's voice brought him back to the conversation. Do you want me to talk to her father? She asked. Ben's brow creased. Mr. Stanford, is there a reason you think you'll talk to him before me? A blush slid across Linda's face and she straightened her blue shift dress. It's just that we're going out tonight, and I thought Celia's father had that reputation, but this was the first Ben knew him to date someone at the facility. I think it's best if you keep facility business and personal business separate. Of course, sir. The recreation room door opened and the young attendant escorted the children to dinner. Celia dawdled at the end of the line. Then she stopped abruptly and glanced at the cracked glasses in Ben's hand. Celia screamed, Put her glasses on! Linda jumped back, maneuvering a chair between her and Celia. The child melted to the ground in a fetal position and covered her face with her hands. Her screaming continued and escalated into the screech of fingernails on slate. Put her glasses on! I don't want to see! I don't want to see! The facility was a well-oiled machine, and within seconds, medication was administered. A mumbling Celia was escorted to her room as the rest of the children continued on to dinner. The next morning, Ben brought the pineapple painting into Celia's room and propped it up against the wall. They needed a breakthrough soon. Her trauma was leaking out through cracks in her dam, but the child simply lay on the bed, eyes unblinking, staring at the ceiling. He pulled the glasses out of his pocket. One lens was smashed, the other cracked. 3 of Linda's glasses were broken last year, but how they were broken wasn't consistent. Putting them in water was. What did that mean? Was it a cry for help? Anger at a person who wore glasses? He glanced at the painting with its swatch of yellow. Pineapples had to mean something. The load in the wagon was the only splash of color. The image screamed pineapples. A tap at the door attracted his attention. Sheriff Lincoln peered through the small glass window. Ben pulled himself out of the low chair and stepped outside the room to talk to him. He left the door ajar to hear any sound Celia might make. The rest of the children were outside. The wing was quiet. Joe Lincoln stood awkwardly, shifting from foot to foot, or holding an orange trash bag. Dr. Rogers, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need a favor. Ben knew what this would be about. He picked up the nurse's phone in the hallway. Is there anyone who could sit with Celia for 20 minutes? Sorry, Dr. Ben, we are down a person today. Who could bring the children inside? No, that's okay. He hung up the phone and gestured for the sheriff to take a seat. Let's talk as if small ears can hear us, Ben said. The sheriff nodded as he eased himself into the chair. Is that bag? Have you found another one? Ben asked. Celia was Ben's white whale, and the bodies in the orange trash bags were Joe's. No, and this is one of your bags. I just wanted another look. Joe set the trash bag on the ground and leaned back in the chair. My profiler says he'll strike soon. We know all the deaths happened in the rain, and it rained last night, so I'm worried. We haven't found a body, but it's too early. Ben shook his head. It was tragic, not only that they had a serial killer in their town, but that his victims were such loners no one reported them missing for months. We've been down this road, Sheriff. Yes, we use that brand of trash bags. Yes, orange is unusual, but you can order them on Amazon. I know, but I feel there's a connection here. The bodies were found nearby. A wheeled cart squeaked as if it was pushed down a distant hall. Both men waited for it to fade. That's a stretch, Joe. This isn't the best side of town. It's where his type of victim lives. Sheriff Joe sighed. I know. Anyway, I want to ask if you'll keep a close watch on your inventory. Check daily to see if a box shows up missing. It's all I got. We'll do our best, Ben said as he escorted Joe to the exit. I saw the orange bags leaked to the media last month. Couldn't keep it secret after that reporter's drone footage. We still have another secret only the murderer would know. A trophy he takes. Ben hurried Joe out. He didn't want to hear about the trophies. As soon as the door shut, it registered in Ben's mind that Joe didn't leave with the trash bag. Ben bolted back to the sitting area. A plastic bag in the hands of any of these children could be deadly. He glanced quickly, frantically, but there was no bag in sight. Through the door, he noticed Celia's vacant bed. Ben flung himself further into the room. It was empty. He turned and stepped into the hall, and then returned when he heard the soft swish of plastic against linoleum. He stepped to the far side of the bed and found Celia down on all fours, pushing the orange bag under her bed. Celia, Ben whispered. The girl raised glassy eyes in Ben's direction. A vapid grin spread across her face. Slowly, she raised one finger to her lips and said, Shh. Then she glanced around at invisible enemies in the room as she climbed into bed. A clatter of voices down the hall broke the silence, children returning from their outside time. Ben stepped inside the room and quietly retrieved the garbage bag and its contents. Celia remained motionless, her fixed stare at the ceiling never breaking. He closed the office door and pulled her painting out of the garbage bag. He looked at every inch of the scene. The story was here, he just didn't know how to read it. The tendrils of thick moss, the moss creature in the background, the wagon full of pineapples, their yellow skin dotted with eyes. Eyes. It was the password that broke the code for Ben. He should call the sheriff, but first he had to be sure, and if he was right, hurrying wasn't going to save Linda. He gripped Nurse Linda's cracked glasses and returned to Celia's room. This might set her back in recovery, but he had to test his theory. Celia, darling? The child still stared at the ceiling. Ben stepped back out as he heard a nurse walk by. Janice? Was it by chance Linda who didn't show up today? Yes, it was. She didn't even call. Can I help you with something? No, thank you. He stepped back into Celia's room. Taking a deep breath and counting to 4 before he released it, he eased down onto the bed and held out the glasses. Celia, hold your mommy's glasses. Celia curled into the fetal position, hands across her eyes. Put them back on, Daddy. I don't want to see. I don't want to see. He calmed Celia and returned to his office and shut the door. He made a phone call. Hello, Sheriff. The souvenir your killer keeps is the eyes of his victims, isn't it? Eyes flowed through the phone line. Why do you ask? Joe had confirmed his fears. Had Celia seen a wagon full of eyes, a familiar face with a missing pair, or both? Joe, are you far? I think it's too late for Linda, but could you get a search warrant for? A scream echoed through the hall. Celia screamed. Ben bolted down the hall. The forgotten phone dangled on its coiled line, bumping rhythmically against the wall. A dark shadow exited Celia's room and vanished. Ben longed to follow it, but Celia's scream escalated. Inside her room, her bed clanged into the wall as her pale, bare feet pushed away from the orange garbage bag at the foot of her bed. Her efforts did not create any momentum for her, but it created momentum for a round white and blue bob on the plastic as it rolled until it connected with Celia's foot. Her scream cut off abruptly. Celia's dilated pupils met Ben's briefly. Her short but potent story of terror poured into him. If only he had guessed sooner, he could have saved Celia and so many others. He watched helplessly as Celia's eyes rolled back and her body spasmed. One final twitch of her foot lobbed Linda's eye off the bed. It hit the floor with a splat and slowly rolled across the linoleum until it came to rest under the yellow pineapple's eyes. All right. So that one's called Not Pineapples. And there's one more, which is called Dream Pineapples. Dream Pineapples. A dream pineapple, excuse me. Yes, you will have to pick the winner of these. So I don't have this talent. Being an English teacher and lover of words, the only games I played on my phone, besides the OG Candy Crush, were word games. One morning, while still in twilight sleep, I dreamt that I was explaining the definition of the word forte to a group of students. I was providing synonyms, context, and using it in sentences. That morning, as I drank my first cup of coffee and played my word games, forte was the wordle of the day. That day. Don't you think there's something going on, Teresa? David asked me after I replayed my recent events. I mean, it's all very serendipitous, but what does it actually mean? I said. I agreed that it was weird. I wasn't a person who believed in coincidences, but then again, my practical brain shushed any woo woo thoughts. My husband believed in supernatural occurrences, and our brains look for events to support our beliefs. Then the reoccurring dream came again, this time after years of the same events. It was the next scene. Of course, the first scene, the dream I dreamt at least 20 times, commenced, and unlike the 20 times before, it continued. This time I was being questioned. Someone had gone missing. But we didn't think this person would be noticed as missing, my dream brain thought. Why are the authorities connecting it to me? My eyes shot open, heart racing. Did I miss something? Oh, yeah, I did miss something. Hold on. Oh, no. I didn't start at the beginning. I'll start at the beginning. Sorry. I've been skeptical of the supernatural my whole life. I was wondering what was going. See, I get in a mode. I apologize. We're going to start at the beginning. I've been skeptical of the supernatural my whole life. I used to race home on Thursday nights after work to make sure I caught the weekly episode of The X Files at 9 p.m. I devoured horror movies with haunted houses and demon possessed children, but actually believe in all of that stuff. Nah, none of that was real. When I met David in my 30s, he was a stout believer of all things UFOs, supernatural ghosts, and Bigfoot. We had an understanding I could only handle so many UFO documentaries before we had to switch to some true crime. Then back to the UFO documentaries. He woke me up one morning, smiling ear to ear, elated to tell me the news that the government was releasing all of the previously classified documents about UFOs. I giggled and rolled over to grab a few more minutes of shut eye. The first incident of extrasensory perception was early in our dating life, during our first overnight outing to the beach. We came upon a little boy splashing in the water unsupervised. Before I said the exact words, David laughed nervously and said, "Well, I sure hope he doesn't get washed away in this surf." I looked at him, stunned that those 12 words had formed in my mind and were about to come out of my mouth. Over the years, these instances became more and more frequent. At one point, David commented that we were experiencing some type of telepathy and it was a supernatural event. I dismissed him. Then my reoccurring dream began. In my dream, I had taken part in a murder. In my dream, I didn't know who I murdered, my motive, or my accomplices. In my dream, I didn't know how the murder happened. In my dream, I didn't witness the murder. I only knew that I had murdered someone and they were buried in a barrel. Countless mornings, my eyes would spring open, heart racing. I'd recount the dream and process that it was not reality. I told David every time I had the dream. I must feel guilty about something in my subconscious mind, I said. A therapist once told me dreams were a way of our brains filing away experiences, thoughts, and feelings. Fancying myself as a wannabe writer, I would often enter short writing contests put on by my writing community every month. One month, the prompt was a series of pictures. Being the visual brainstormer I am, I printed off pictures as stickers to put in my journal. When I sat down to study the pictures days later, they were nowhere to be found on my desk. I turned my offers upside down. I could just reprint them or look at them online, but a matter of principle forced me to obsess about finding them. My back was turned to my desk when I sorted through stacks of other notebooks and papers. I resolved that I just needed to take a breath and calm down if I was going to get any writing done. I turned back to my desk and the pictures were peeking out from underneath my brainstorming journal. My desk was empty besides my journal before. Being an English teacher and lover of words, the only games I played on my phone besides the OG Candy Crush were word games. One morning, while still in twilight sleep, I dreamt that I was explaining the definition of the word forte to a group of students. I was providing synonyms, context for using it in sentences. That morning, as I drank my first cup of coffee and played my word games, forte was the wordle of that day. Don't you think something going on, Teresa? David asked me after I played recent events. I mean, it is all very serendipitous, but what does it actually mean? I said. I agreed that it was weird. I wasn't a person who believed in coincidences. But then again, my practical brain shushed any woo woo thoughts. My husband believed in supernatural occurrences, and our brains looked for events to support our beliefs. Then the reoccurring dream came again. This time, after years of the same events, it was the next scene. Of course, the first scene, the dream I had dreamt at least 20 times, commenced. And unlike the 20 times before, it continued. This time, I was being questioned. Someone had gone missing. But we didn't think this person would be noticed as missing, my dream brain thought. Why are the authorities connecting it to me? My eyes shot open, heart racing. It's not real. Seriously, Teresa, you didn't kill anyone. You're a high school English teacher. You are the most boring person on the planet. Deep breathing to center myself into reality, and I got ready for the day. The dream stuck with me all day. Over dinner, I decided to process with David. I recounted the second scene in my recurring dream. Okay, hear me out. What fruit have you eaten lately? He asked. This question took me off guard, and I laughed. I had a fruit smoothie yesterday. What fruit was in it? Strawberries, blueberries, kale, and pineapple. Why? I asked. Have an open mind here. Your dreams have me thinking, he began. There is a legend. I rolled my eyes playfully. Here we go, I said. No, seriously, babe, listen. There was a cursed orchard back in the 1980s that was said to be haunted by the ghost of the caretaker, he began. Wait, what? Where? I asked, feeling the adrenaline dumping into my system. I don't know exactly where. Why? Growing up, we drove by a creepy orchard on the bus to school every morning. We used to scare each other with stories of that creepy orchard guy, I told him. Okay, that is weird. I have more to tell you, he continued. The cursed orchard produced fruit that wasn't native to that land. Things like papayas and pineapples showed up all over the ground. People who ate the fruit entered into a dream world, living out their biggest dreams or facing their worst nightmares, he explained. And that has what to do with my smoothie? I smirked, still uneasy about the memory of the creepy orchard from my past. Teresa, where did the fruit come from? Those guys who are on the corners at stop signs with their tables and umbrellas selling boxes of fruit. I kept driving by this one and I finally pulled over and bought a box of mixed fruit from him. May had trailed off but was confronted with rational brain. We need to find out where that fruit came from. What if it was the dream pineapple? The dream pineapple? Are you kidding me right now, David? That is the dorkiest thing you've said in a long time. Teresa, I know you don't always believe me. No, actually, I don't think you ever believe me. But you can't deny that you've been experiencing some weird shit lately. Can't you have an open mind for once? Humor me on this one. I nodded as I tipped back my wine. I was going to need a bigger glass if this was the direction of our night. Okay, so what do you suggest? I asked. Tell me more about the orchard. Imagine if it was the same one as the legend. Okay, Mulder, he frowned at me. The bus used to drive by this orchard every day. It was always unusually dark beyond the tree line. When we were in fourth grade, Georgie Simmons screamed and pointed one morning as we drove by the orchard. He saw an old decrepit man wearing broken glasses peering out behind one of the trees. Georgie said the man pointing at him and winked. Of course, we all believed him, and the lore began. We called him Malachi Blackwood. You remember Malachi, the kid in the movie Children of the Corn? I barely got it out without giggling. It sounded so silly. David's face was fixed like the North Star. Teresa, I'm not kidding. The haunted orchard in the legend was Blackwood Farms. All of the events and serendipitous happenings over the last 12 years that we had been together flooded my veins. There had to be some explanation rooted in reality. I ran my hands over my face and stretched my neck up toward the sky. David, what is happening? This is starting to freak me out. What do I do? I felt panic rising in my body. I think you need to eat pineapple tonight. If the pineapple is the dream pineapple from the cursed orchard, it might impact your dream. Even if it is a bad dream, I'll calm you. I'll stay awake all night and watch you. Couldn't believe that I was even considering this to be a reality. A dream pineapple. That was literally the dumbest thing my rational brain had ever thought of. I woke up and David was not in the chair next to the bed. He promised he wouldn't leave the room. David? I called out. Nothing but silence answered. I crawled out of bed, still shaken from my dream. No more details had emerged during my slumber, just a replay of a body being stuffed in a barrel, a detective at my door inquiring about a missed person, a wash of guilt that I couldn't shake. The conversation about the dream pineapple popped in my head and I chuckled. David? I called again. Nothing. Perplexed, I made my way to the kitchen for coffee and my morning wordle. At least that would distract me from my dream. As I passed the side table in our main hallway, my body tingled with an uncomfortable realization. Where was our wedding photo? I'd fretted over the replacement of fake plants and photos on the side table. I knew I'd placed our wedding photo next to the purpley green succulent, but for some reason, I noticed it wasn't there. A knock at my front door surprised me out of staring at the empty spot on the table. My watch showed it was 9 a.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. And where the hell was David? Through the peephole of the door, I saw two men dressed in khakis and black shirts standing on the front porch. Curious, I stepped back and opened the door. Teresa Brighton? One of the men asked. Yes, can I help you? I'm Agent Scott Major with the FBI Cold Case Unit. We're investigating the disappearance of a man named David Woods. May we come in? David Woods disappeared? I stuttered. Yes, ma'am, about 12 years ago, agent manager replied. We understand he was a boyfriend back in college. We just have a few questions. Yes, yes, of course, puzzled. I opened the door for them to come in. I closed the door and instinctively ran my thumb over the inside of my finger to rub my wedding band. I froze as my thumb glided across my flesh. There was no wedding band. All right, that's the final story. That is Dream Pineapple. All right, so it is now it is now your turn. So you will have to pick the winners for the winner, excuse me, for this challenge. We could have multiple winners if we have a tie. It's been known to happen. It's not impossible. So every vote does in fact count. It all matters. I am going to give it here. Yeah, it did get kind of creepy this time around. It was a variety of stories, but I will say they were a lot of them were on the creepy side. But I'm assuming that's because that opening image kind of was a little creepy, right? This like rundown looking wheelbarrow with uh uh pineapples. By the way, some people were asking about the image of the animal. The intended representation was that it would was a excuse me, it was a pangolin. So people were asking uh what was it? And the answer was it was a pangolin. It's not letting you vote. Okay, hold on. If there's an issue, I can get that resolved. I think I know what occurred here. Just a moment. Don't worry. It's not going to affect the result. I promise. Yep, I see what happened here. Yeah. If you voted last month, it's not letting you. Um, so some people were able to, and some people weren't. Go ahead and use this link. Don't worry, it will not affect the results. So that one should work. My apologies. Let me know if that is still causing you any issues. Okay. Yep. Sorry about that. Don't worry. Like I said, it will not affect the results. Mm, I just had to hit a button. It's close. Every vote counts. I'm gonna have to call one more minute for voting just to call it. It's very close right now, though. It is so close. It's almost it's almost a three-way tie. Dun dun dun. All right. All right. This is the last result. Okay, I'm refreshing now, and this is the result we're gonna go with. If you saw an armadillo, don't worry, and you're like, "That's why, we wouldn't have picked," it has nothing to do with that, because if you saw lots of different things, you'll notice some of them are not very specific in the way they use the prompt. The prompt was just a springboard, so don't worry about that. That wouldn't have been a reason that, you wouldn't have been selected. Alright. Okay, and the winner is Dream Pineapples. Yes, Dream Pineapples. And a close second is uh, actually a tie of Antique Atrocities and Not Pineapples. So awesome, awesome. Good job, everybody. It was really close. So yay for Dream Pineapples. Congratulations. For those of you who enjoyed the challenges, don't worry. There are more challenges coming in the future. So please join us for that. And yeah, look, check in your email because you will be getting notified if you sign up for this challenge about our next challenge, which is going to be a little bit different than the way that we've done it in the past. So just keep an eye on your email box and we'll be reaching out to you for that. In the meantime, though, stay tuned to this YouTube channel because we're going to be coming on next month with some tips and tricks about writing, and we even have some interesting new features to show you within AutoCrit that you don't even know about yet. So great things coming, and yeah, we'll see you around. Bye, everybody. You have a wonderful day.